Hello and assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our channel and welcome back to Mentoring Hub's live Soulful Sunday series. Thank you so much. Like every week, as I say, हमें बहुत 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 सुपर मोटिवेशन मिलती है. इतनी सारी इंकरेजमेंट भेजते हैं आप लोग और इतने सारे मैसेजेस, इतने सारे फीडबैक. तो बस बहुत ही फ्लैबरगैस्टिंगली बिजी गुजरता है हमारा हफ्ता. और जल्दी जल्दी मैंने ये सोचा, लास्ट टाइम की तरह आपने देखा 9 o'clock से पहले ही मैंने लाइव स्टार्ट कर दिया क्योंकि मुझसे अब वेट नहीं हो रहा था और मुझे आज आपसे बड़ी जरूरी बातें करनी है बिफोर आवर गेस्ट जॉइन्स इन टुडे. ड्रम रोल्स. हम लोगों ने अपना माइंडफुल स्किल्स डेवलपमेंट क्लब इंटरनेशनल लॉन्च कर दिया है. आप सब ने पोस्टर्स चेक भी किए और हमें बहुत सारे मेंबरशिप रिक्वेस्ट्स आने शुरू हो गए फ्रॉम ऑल अराउंड द ग्लोब. यस, because it's an international platform, it's open for everybody who is based nationally and also internationally. So हमें बहुत 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 superb response आ रहा है माशाल्लाह, and I'm so super happy. Our team is as happy about it because we have worked day in and day and night to bring this together to our community, आप सब लोगों के लिए. और सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी इसमें हम लोगों का बहुत सारा पैशन और बहुत सारा सेल्फ क्या कह सकते हैं, अंग्रेजी का लफ्ज तो मुझे नहीं आ रहा पर हाँ उर्दू का एक लफ्ज याद आ रहा है मुझे. अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी मुस्तफ़ा काबिश, थैंक यू सो मच. बहुत शुक्रिया आपके ज्वाइन करने का. एंड आई होप आपने भी माइंडफुल इंटरनेशनल स्किल्स क्लब के लिए मेंबरशिप फॉर्म भर दिया है. अगर नहीं भरा है मुस्तफ़ा तो फौरन से जाइए. हमारे पेज पे थोड़ा सा स्क्रॉल डाउन करेंगे तो एक पोस्टर है जिसपे लिखा हुआ है कि मेंबरशिप इस वक्त ओपन है और आप लोग अपनी डिटेल्स डाल सकते हैं. सिंपली कुछ भी नहीं करना आपने, सिर्फ गूगल फॉर्म के लिंक पे क्लिक करना है और अपने डिटेल्स हमें सेंड करने हैं ताकि उस पूरे सिस्टम का पार्ट बन सके. जल्दी से मैं चाहूंगी एक छोटे से स्निपेट में इस वक्त को यूज करते हुए आप लोगों को बताना चाहूंगी मैं. मुस्तफा आप भी मुझे जरूर अपना फीडबैक दीजिएगा कि ये पूरा प्लेटफॉर्म हमने क्यों क्रिएट किया है. सबसे पहली चीज तो हमें हमेशा, जैसे कि हम सब एज अ कम्युनिटी फील करते हैं कि देयर इज अ स्टार्क स्टार्क ह्यूज गैप, बहुत बड़ा गैप है जिसमें हम कहते हैं कि हमें कोई एक प्लेटफॉर्म, ऐसे ही है ना. और अब जबकि हम पोस्ट कोविड सरवाइव करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं तो हमें चाहिए नए स्किल्स, हमें चाहिए नया, कुछ नया. हर आदमी कह रहे हैं हमें कुछ नया तरीका बताएं, हमें कोई नई स्ट्रैटेजी दें, हमें कोई नए टैक्टिक्स दें. मुस्तफा आप कह रहे हैं यू आर ट्राइंग. आप मुझे जरूर बताइएगा, अभी मैसेज करके बता दीजिएगा. प्लीज ट्राई टू गो टू द लिंक एंड रजिस्टर. अगर आपसे वो लिंक ना खुले तो आप प्लीज मेंटरिंग हब के पेज पे हमें इनबॉक्स कर दीजिएगा. हम आपको लिंक आपके मैसेज बॉक्स में वापस इनबॉक्स कर देंगे ताकि आप एग्जैक्टली जाके डायरेक्टली. अस्सलाम वालेकुम सरिश, हाउ आर यू? इट्स बीन सो लॉन्ग. एक हफ्ता मुझे लगता है 100 साल हो जाते हैं और मैं इतना ज्यादा मिस करती हूँ आप लोगों को कि बस मैं आजकल 9 बजे का पूरा इंतजार भी नहीं कर पाती और मैं गो लाइव का बटन स्ट्रीम दबा देती. तो कमिंग बैक टू द स्किलफुल माइंडफुल क्लब जो इंटरनेशनल है, जो हमने लॉन्च किया है, उसकी एम्स और पैशन का जरा सा मैं एक स्निपेट देना चाह रही थी. और वो ये कि हम लोगों का एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म पे आके एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म को इस्तेमाल करना बहुत जरूरी है ना. और हम सब जब नए स्किल्स की बात कर रहे हैं पोस्ट कोविड, हम सब लोग नए टैक्टिक्स, नए स्ट्रैटेजीज की बात कर रहे हैं. एक तरफ ये है, दूसरी तरफ जब हम यूथ डेवलपमेंट की बात करते हैं तो हमारे यहाँ 13 और 24 के बाद बंद हो जाता है दरवाजा. और यूथ में हमारे वो सुपरबली एक्सपीरियंस्ड और लर्नेड, एजुकेटेड, अपने लाइफ के एक्सपीरियंसेस से गुजरे हुए लोग जो कि हमारी सोसाइटी का इतना बड़ा और इतना सिग्निफिकेंट हिस्सा है. आप सब वो लोग जो मिड लाइफ करियर प्रोफेशनल्स हैं, एजुकेशनिस्ट्स हैं, अपनी अपनी जगहों पे, कोई साइकोलॉजिस्ट है, कोई ट्रेनर है, कोई मेंटोर है, लेकिन सब लोग जो हैं वो बिखरे हुए हैं हमारे इस पूरे इस मुल्क के अंदर, जाहिर है, और एक प्लेटफॉर्म नहीं है. तो ये जो माइंडफुल स्किल्स डेवलपमेंट का एक जो हमने ये शुरू किया है प्लेटफॉर्म, इसका मकसद है इन सबको, हम सबको एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे लेकर आना। दूसरी चीज ये कि 13 to 45 का, मैंने लास्ट टाइम भी जब हम अपना लाइव करे थे तो मैंने बताया था कि यस द एजेस आर 13 to 45। और मजे की बात ये कि WHO ने इंटरनेशनली यूथ का मैक्सिमम एज जो है वो 45 लिखा है। तो जितने 40s वाले, जितने मिड 30s वाले प्रोफेशनल्स हैं, होम बेस्ड होमप्रेन्योर्स हैं, आर्टिस्ट्स हैं, कैलीग्राफी करते हैं, फिल्म मेकिंग करते हैं, आर्ट्स करते हैं, क्राफ्ट्स करते हैं, होम इकोनॉमिक्स, पता नहीं क्या क्या। So thank you so much, Isha. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us. Isha is another shining star. I have to call out her name right now. Isha, it means a million that you've joined us today. Isha is a proud shining star, a coming up star, co-founder of Printy and Lean Community. जो यंगस्टर्स का सर्कल है, माशाल्लाह वो कम्युनिटी लीड है, बड़ी जबरदस्त काम कर रही है। ईशा, प्लेजर एंड ऑनर यू ज्वाइनिंग अस। तो ये जो माइंडफुल स्किल्स डेवलपमेंट क्लब है, ये एक्चुअली करने क्या वाला है? एक तो ये कि हम सब एक कंसोर्टियम पे आ जाएंगे, एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे आ जाएंगे। वो सारे लोग, वो सारे प्रोफेशनल्स, वो सारे मिड करियर प्रोफेशनल्स जो अपनी अपस्किलिंग के लिए इस वक्त बहुत परेशान हैं और सोच रहे हैं, इधर उधर देख रहे हैं, हम क्या करें, हम क्या करें, हम कहाँ ढूंढें, हम किस रिलायबल इंसान से बात करें जो हमें किसी रिलायबल स्किल्स डेवलपमेंट के एवेन्यू का बता दे। ये वो प्लेटफॉर्म इंशाल्लाह बन जाएगा और बन रहा है, जहां से हम ग्लोबली इंटरनेशनली एक ग्लोबल सिटीजन का फॉर्मेट पूरा कंप्लीटली लेकर आएंगे। ठीक है ना? और देखो ईशा भी एग्री कर रही है, थैंक यू सो मच ईशा, कि वाकई देयर इज नो डेफिनेशन ऑफ यूथ वाइड इन द इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी। और ईशा, मैं एक और बात बताऊं, मैं हमेशा ये कहती हूँ दैट एनीबडी हु हैज who has the passion to keep going, to keep shining, to keep sharing their experiences, वो सारे के सारे लोग मेरे हिसाब से यूथ में ही आते हैं। बिकॉज हर वो इंसान जो इस चीज को समझता है that the receiving bit will never begin जब तक कि हम देना नहीं शुरू करते। हाँ, जब तक हम देना शुरू नहीं करेंगे, हमारा रिसीविंग पार्ट ऑफ द ब्लेसिंग कभी शुरू होने वाला नहीं है। सो कमिंग बैक टू द आइडिया, माइंडफुल स्किल्स अप बिल्डिंग में हम बहुत सारी चीजें कवर करेंगे और सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी चीज हम कवर करेंगे हाउ टू इंटरैक्ट विथ पीपल, जो कि आज का सबसे बड़ा एजेंडा है कि हम कैसे इंटरैक्ट करें, हम कैसे नेगेटिव लोगों को हैंडल करें, हम कैसे हर नेगेटिव सिचुएशन में से पॉजिटिविटी ढूंढें। सिल्वर लाइनिंग की हर इंसान बात करता रहता है, हर इंसान कहता है जोरा क्या ऐसा हो सकता है कि हम लोग, कि आप जैसे 24 घंटे इस मूड में होती है कि आप 24 आवर्स ऐसे मूड में होती हो? तो मैं कहती हूँ कि नहीं यार, ऐसे तो पॉसिबल नहीं है, और मैं 24 आवर्स ऐसे मूड में भी नहीं होती, बहुत दफा क्रैम्पी भी हो जाती हूँ और बहुत दफा डाउन भी होती हूँ, लो भी होती हूँ, लेकिन हाँ सिल्वर लाइनिंग ढूंढती रहती हूँ कहीं ना कहीं, क्योंकि मुझे ये पता है कि बहुत जरूरी है हमारा सिल्वर लाइनिंग ढूंढना। उसके अलावा जो मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट इस वक्त हमारे लिए एजेंडा है वो है हम सब का इमोशनल वेल बीइंग। जब भी हम माइंडफुलनेस की बात करते हैं, जब मेंटरिंग हब ने ये आइडिया पायनियर किया पाकिस्तान में, उसका रीजन सोली यही था कि हमारे कम्युनिटी के अंदर जो इश्यूज इस वक्त भी टैबू कंसिडर किए जाते हैं, उन इश्यूज को डिस्कस करना बहुत जरूरी है। हम सबका आपस में बैठ के बात को सुलझाना बहुत जरूरी है, ताकि हम वो जो बार बार हार्ट और माइंड वाले सिंक्रोनी की बात कर रहे होते हैं ना, उस चीज को स्टैब्लिश कर सकें। सो आप ये समझ लें कि जो माइंडफुल स्किल्स बिल्डिंग कम्युनिटी है ना, और ये कंसोर्टियम बन रहा है इस वक्त ग्लोबल, आप इसका हिस्सा बनेंगे ना, देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ मोर सरप्राइजिंग कमिंग योर वे। स्पेशली जितने 30s वाले, मिड 20s वाले, मिड 40s वाले एक्सपीरियंस्ड लोग हों, प्रोफेशनल्स हैं, नॉन प्रोफेशनल्स हैं, घर से बैठ के कोई बिजनेस चलाते हैं, वो सब लोग जब इस कंसोर्टियम का पार्ट बनेंगे तो ना सिर्फ ये कि हम लोग जो है वो अपस्किलिंग के लिए बहुत चीजें लाने वाले हैं, उसके साथ साथ हम आप लोगों की स्किल्स, आप लोगों की एक्सपीरियंसेस को इस प्लेटफॉर्म के थ्रू, जी हाँ, हमारे इंटरनेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म के थ्रू हम आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी प्रोवाइड करेंगे, प्रोग्राम स्ट्रक्चर करेंगे, ताकि आप लोग अपने पैगाम को, अपनी लर्निंग को और अपने उस पैशन को आगे बढ़ा सकें सोसाइटी में. We have to lean in full circle, inshallah. So that's what's the agenda behind this. मैं देख रही हूँ कि हमारे वेटिंग रूम में हमारी गेस्ट भी आ चुकी हैं. मैंने उनका इंट्रो भी मेंशन किया था, लेकिन मैं जरूर हमेशा की तरह अपने गेस्ट से, अब ये गेस्ट तो नहीं रही, बड़ी अच्छी दोस्त बन गई है मेरी. She is a very proud daughter of the soil. And I'm very happy. Mentoring Hub is very happy to connect with her. She's an award-winning author, a superb professional nutritionist, and mental health propagator, जिसमें वो encourage कर रही हैं बहुत सारे लोगों को पूरी दुनिया में. माशाल्लाह, she's going all around the world and she's helping so many people around the globe. So today I am superbly excited. जैसे मैं हर संडे होती हूँ, मैं आज जरा डबल एक्साइटेड, इससे कि आज पहली दफा मुझे मौका मिल रहा है उनको अपनी कम्युनिटी की तरफ लाने का और इंट्रोड्यूस कराने का. और ये कम्युनिटी भी क्या है, आप सब लोग हैं, ऑल थ्रू आउट द ग्लोब जो हमें देखते हैं, हमारे साथ होते हैं. मैं यहाँ पे थैंक यू करना चाहूंगी टू फील वर्ल्ड वाइड एंड ऑल्सो टू अरबाब नसीबुल्लाह फ्रॉम द यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ मैसाचुसेट्स, जो हमारे मीडिया कोलैबोरेटिव पार्टनर्स हैं, who make it possible every time we're recording, every time we're putting our videos out, to make sure that we have smooth access to all of these facilities, जिसमें StreamYard और बहुत सारी और digital चीजें आ जाती हैं. So thank you UMass for this lovely collaboration. फील के साथ हम बहुत सारे programs करेंगे इंशाल्लाह. लेकिन अब मैं without any further ado, क्योंकि मुझसे वेट नहीं हो रहा, अब मैं फारा को ऐड कर रही हूँ. तो फारा जो है वो खुद से अपने आप को इंट्रोड्यूस कराएं. अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, क्या हाल है आपके?
बिल्कुल ठीक. I love what you're wearing. Thank you so much. I'm super excited. Thank you.
No problem at all. It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, having me on here. I did say I wanted to do something and give back to the soil that I grew up in, and then you came along, so the opportunity came along, and if I can be of any help, then why not?
Oh no, बहुत 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 शुक्रिया, इसलिए कि this is what I say always, Farah. We can pay back everything to each other, but this time is something that I can never pay you back for. We're all very busy with so much in life, with things in life, but then when we take our time, when you take our time, this means a million to me and to the community. So बहुत शुक्रिया for that. So मैंने आपका intro जो है वो float किया था, and then we started getting messages from everywhere. Mashallah, people were really excited, and we got an overwhelming response on the first day when we uploaded the poster. But I would want you to give a snippet to the community of your journey, and also the fact, if you had time, आज एक खास चीज मेरे जहन में थी जो मैं that I wanted to cover with you. And whilst I had heard about your journey when we were talking the last time, मुझे बहुत clear हुई एक चीज that we're all running for perfectionism. हम सब भाग रहे हैं ना, we're all just racing day in and day out. और अभी भी when we're here, even now, everyone's in the same rat race. Perfect bahu, perfect माँ, perfect बहन, perfect employer, perfect boss कौन सा होता है, perfect team members कौन से होते हैं, you know. So this entire thing has actually overshadowed, Farah, the fact that there needs to be a lot of emotional stability and a lot of mental stability before anything else comes along here. Even if it means success of any sort, in any role, I think you will agree कि हमें यहाँ पे synchrony चाहिए, जो कि gap है और miss है. So अब मैं और कुछ नहीं बोलूँगी because I want you to speak. आप please पहले अपनी journey के बारे में बताइए और please अपना feedback share करें.
Before I start with my journey, my Urdu is not going to be perfect, okay? So kuch
No
Urdu, and then the rest of it is going to be in English, especially when I'm going deeper in explaining. And before I talk about myself, the point you just made about people being perfect, and there is a lot of pressure on people being perfect, but it's about perspective. We see things like that. We want to be perfect. But if we start thinking about we want progress, change the word from perfect to progress. that's going to give you a better understanding, because then you don't feel like a failure. But if you have progress, if you have perfection constantly, if you're looking for perfect employer, perfect partner, perfect business, perfect kids, you put a lot of pressure on yourself and the person. And I think if you change it to progress, that means that you are pointing that direction. You're heading towards the right direction because you're progressing. So it's about changing perspective. It's about changing your point of view to think about, am I better than yesterday? Is my employer, have they learned something? Are they better than yesterday? Is my health better than yesterday? Is my relationship better than yesterday? Am I a better communicator now? And I think that carries a lot of power, and it takes away the pressure from us for sure. So I wanted to just add that point because I really related to what you just said about perfectionism. It's a very difficult word to stand up to be honest. So let me talk about myself. So who I was, I'll do a quick one really, because I grew up in Pakistan. I was 2 years old, and I was born in England, went to Pakistan with my sister, and I grew up with my nanny granddad for a few years. Then my mum, who's Brazilian, and my dad's from Pakistan, she came to live in Pakistan. We moved around in Pakistan in a few cities because my dad's job changed. He's a chartered accountant. We kind of followed him around, so went to different schools, etc. So I kind of grew up there. And from age 14, I came back to England. I did my GCSEs in England, and then returned back because I was at the age of getting married. And the idea is to really get me a rishta. You know rishta?
Yeah.
So that was the idea. Also, maybe I wasn't behaving like a good girl here in England, so my parents were a bit worried. So I'm going to be honest. So they sent me back, or my mum and dad decided that. And when I went there, I was like 17. I went to Girls' College of Multan, and I did my bachelor's in arts degree in English literature. And I did really well because obviously my English was good, and it really helped me to get the grades. While I was there, I was kind of getting proposals of getting married. I was very overwhelmed, and there was a lot of proposals. I was like, oh, this is nice, everybody wants me. Very different to being in England. Very different to being in England. However, I decided that that wasn't where I wanted to go, so I came back to England, and that's where I met my first husband, who was British. It was very difficult for my dad to accept somebody from a different culture, so there was a little bit of a difficulty in getting married. But my ex-husband was a very nice person. He converted into Islam, and then we lived together. We had two boys, age 15 and 11 now, Zayn and Rayhan. And a few years back we got a divorce. We just didn't get on as well as we thought. And then I remarried again with another person. Again, there was a difficulty because of the color of the skin. But I continue to go on my own journey. And there's lots of obstacles in my way, whether they are cultural obstacles, whether they are family obstacles, opinions from people. But I continue to listen to myself. And I have a very deep belief in God, that I continue to ride on that. Nobody can shake my belief, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Nobody can shake it. So when I feel good about something, I go and do that. Just after my son was born, second one, I went through a postnatal depression. I didn't know what it was. So the education around what depression is in England or in Pakistan isn't really there. Now, there are people in my family that are depressed, but there is no education around it. So you didn't know what it was. So I didn't know. I was in my 20s, late 20s. My son was 4-year-old, the older one, started school. My younger boy was a baby. I was really struggling, and I don't know what this feeling was. It felt like I just couldn't be happy. I continued to cry. And that happens after you've had a baby, but they continued for 2-3 years afterwards. So I went to the doctors and I was given antidepressants really quickly, like this. Here you go, take your tablets, go get better. But I knew that I don't want to take these antidepressants because my family members back in Pakistan had taken those. And I didn't see a huge difference in their health. I didn't see them thriving. So I was always worried about taking medication. I took it for a while because my husband at that time said, you need to get yourself together. You have a house to run. You have 2 boys to look after. So there was a lot of pressure. So I took that. However, I also started to go for a walk, and I then started to jog. Then I started to run, and I did some half marathons, and that really helped me. So I really felt much better, and I gave up my antidepressants.
Wow.
Can you hear me? Dora, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, but it's a bit low. If you could turn the volume up, that would be great, Farah. Can you do that? Is that possible? In the meanwhile, I'll take a few comments as well. Yeah, sure. Samina, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Samina. आपने join किया. All of these, Farah, our community leads, Isha, Samina, they all lead different communities. Thank you so much. आप लोगों ने हमें join किया. And please stay tuned for the rest of the program. और जितने लोग इसके बाद recording देखेंगे, वो भी बड़े गौर से बातें सुनिएगा, because आज हम जिन चीजों के बारे में बात करेंगे, these are things that we are going to be more often speaking about now, and you've oftenly heard me crying mindfulness everywhere, Farah. Please continue.
Definitely. So after these antidepressants were given to me, nobody spoke to me about my food. No one spoke to me about my health, my mind, do I need some kind of psychological help? Do I need to speak to someone? There was my family members were around, but I was not very open. Especially when you're feeling depressed, you don't like to tell your problems to other people easily because you're unsure about yourself. So you doubt yourself a lot. So I didn't really tell my mom or my sister, even to this day, like, if they're listening, I just send them the link, so they might be listening. But they didn't know as well as I would. One thing I realized that, England has a very good health system, NHS. However, there is a lot of gaps in it. So the solution for depression was antidepressants for me. But when I look back, that was not the right solution for me. I needed to have some nutrition education. I needed to be told about exercise. I needed to be talked about mindfulness. How do I connect my mind and my body together? What do I need to do every day? Every steps that I need to take so I can actually feel better. Because to me, giving antidepressants is a band-aid. So you're just putting a plaster on a wound, aren't you? You need to let the wound dry. Exactly. So I knew I wasn't going to take these for too long. So when I started to run, I felt better. Then I lost too much weight because I didn't know how to fuel myself. I didn't know how to eat properly. And that's when my journey of figuring out what I need to eat. I went and did some personal training courses, and I then did a nutrition course, which is #1 best course in the world, because I wanted to know the scientific reason behind why you should eat like this. It's called precision nutrition. And now what I do is I help women, particularly mums, to get their life back in control. And most of the people I work with have some kind of a trauma. So some kind of a trauma that they've gone through, which is affecting their life even now, even though the trauma was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Yep. But it's because it's affecting their life. So when I come into their life, we open up all these questions, and then we start to work backwards, and we start to have a plan to go forwards. But we must expose what's happening in the back. Otherwise, we can't move forward. So that's what I do. I'm now a deep health expert, helping women to get control of their bodies and their minds.
Wow, that sounds super, Farah. And if I may ask you, were you with your basis of education, a Bachelor of Arts, with what you did in Multan, back in Multan, did you ever know that this was something that was going to ever come along? Was this ever part of your personality? I mean,
Yes. It's a really good question, actually. No one's actually asked me that question before. I do know one thing, that I was good with people. People tend to was friendly, and people came towards me. So I kind of attracted a lot of people towards me. And somehow I would listen, and I would always offer some kind of comfort. And I think that, what's the word I'm looking for? That attribution, I guess,
really led you. Yeah, I think that was something. Because nothing happens without a reason. I'm a stark believer for that. I know there has to be a seed somewhere for us to be really there in the galaxy and we don't just fall off the sky, which is why I asked you the question, because I know that it doesn't come. I understand that there are a lot of characters that are intrinsic, Farah, और बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें होती हैं जो हमारे character का part होती हैं, और बहुत सारी चीजें ऐसी होती हैं जो हम सीखते हैं, जैसे हम एक सवाल पूछते हैं, which is a very common question, are leaders made or born? Our community lead made or born? क्या हम भी ये कर सकते हैं? Can we do this? Can we do that? But then again, I feel there are certain characters in our personality that we need to work at. जो कि नहीं होंगे तो बहुत सारे gaps आ जाएंगे. So continuing the conversation, Farah, जो आपने, when you talk about postpartum depression, this is something more than 85% of our community women go through. And this is something that they cannot discuss. This is something that they do not know about. If they say that they're going through it to their husbands or to their in-laws or to their families, we can consider the relationship hitting rock bottom, them never being trusted, and the list is endless. What do you think? What do you think can be the start points for women who are listening to you now, or the women who are going to listen to our recording later? What are the points, the real pointers that they need to be concerned about when we're talking about depression seeping in? Can we have a 1-2 count, something that, you know, people listening in now can especially help them recognize the fact that it's seeping in, depression seeping in?
Yeah, sure. So I tell you my own story. So when my baby was first born, I realized I had an operation. So probably not appropriate to say this on here. I had an operation in my back, in my bottom. Sorry, apologies, people. But this was as a result of me working very hard leading up to pregnancy, standing up, not caring for myself. Okay, because women, whether they are in Pakistan, or whether they're in America, or whether they're in UK, we always do more than we can handle. So we always do extra stuff. We always do more. When people are saying to us, go and rest, go and do a bit of rest, we don't listen because we want to be some kind of superwoman. Okay. So in the process of being superwoman, we have forgotten our health is getting affected. So I know why the depression came into my life was because I had this massive operation 3 months before I gave birth, which was a cesarean birth. And very quickly, I got out of the bed, started to look after the house, started to take my son to school, and I didn't heal. So I didn't heal. And to heal, you need to eat right. You need to eat food, good food, not just carbs, but also some protein. Because when you're ill, you need protein to heal. Now, I didn't know that. No, neither did my midwife tell me, nor did my husband tell me. Nobody told me. My mum did.
Because nobody probably knew, Farah. Do you think people knew about it?
No, and I think it's my own responsibility as well, because I needed to be prepared. I needed to make sure before the baby comes along that I have good food in my fridge. I needed to make sure that somebody takes my little child, 4-year-old, and picks it up from school and takes him to a club. I needed to make sure that the right kind of help was ready for me when I brought the baby home. But I continued to breastfeed. I breastfed and I looked after my 4-year-old, and I didn't eat properly. In fact, I ate very badly. I was having sweets. I was having nachos. So I was having quick things to give my sugar levels, take my sugar levels up. I wasn't sleeping. Yeah. That result of that took me to depression. The lack of care took me to depression. So if anyone's listening to me now and you are going through the same thing, whether you had a baby or not, if you want to look after your mind and your body, start with your body. If you want to eat 3 proper meals, drink water, have some kind of an exercise. When I say exercise, you don't need to join a gym. You can do something simple at home. Those 3 things are actually going to give you a good base to work from. So if you're feeling depressed right now, don't go to the doctors and get yourself antidepressants straight away. That is not the solution, because you're going to be on antidepressants for 20 years. Do you want to do that?
My God.
You don't want to be on antidepressant for 20 years. It numbs you. In fact, it doesn't even work after a little while because it's like a placebo effect. Does that make sense? You know, it makes you think it's
Yes, it
working,
does.
but
It does. It's actually taking me
yeah,
back to Farah because I've also been through a phase myself, and it's actually taking me, your conversations taking me back to a point where I have been in a situation in my life and early on after my marriage that I wasn't able to really relate why I was changing in terms of my behavior, and my anxiety was roof-topping. And it wasn't until my daughter was 2.5 years old that I really had to go to the doctor. And even then, the most unbelievable thing to my story is that I didn't go to a doctor until the day, one day, when my fingers actually froze on my laptop keyboard. They froze. I mean, I wasn't able to move my fingers. They were like freezing like this on like an octi on the keyboard, and I started screaming. And that was the first time I ever went to the doctor. And when I got myself tested at the age of 25, I was diagnosed with a cervical spondylosis, a CPT in both of my wrists, multiple issues, So yeah, so you've just taken me back long, and being here, propagating all of this for the community, Farah. This is what I say to each and every individual I come across is when we share our low points in life, this is why it's important to share the low points, because ये सबसे ज़्यादा किसी को मदद कर सकता है. Instead of us talking about our successes every single time, और हमेशा
100%.
वो फेरी टेल सुनाते रहे कि जब हम किसी कंपनी का पार्ट बने थे तो कंपनी के सेल्स 500 टाइम ऊपर चले गए थे, पर जब वो गिरे थे नीचे तो क्या हुआ था. So you've just taken me back into time, and so your conversation makes a lot of sense to me, because my doctors had prescribed to me muscle relaxants, and
Yeah.
they were basically just bring me to sleep, Farah. So with a 2.5-year-old daughter, with me working full time with the British Council at that point in time and being very active and everything, they were just wanting me to sleep through the day,
This
and
is
and it was just a few days later, yeah. And a few days later, I just gave up and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore because I don't want to die on my bed. There's so much we've got to do. So I practically, yeah. But I remember this one person I met who's as a gem as you, I must say. She's a nutritionist doctor as well, and she said to me this. She said, Zora, you decide if you want to die like this or if you want to be another person altogether. And she made me understand the fact that these are things that are so important. So yeah, so you just took me back, Farah. So this is this. But when I say, Farah, that we're all racing, हम सब भाग रहे हैं, परफेक्ट 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 हो जाए, परफेक्ट हो जाए. और ये स्टिग्मा है हमारी सोसाइटी का कि जो कलर परफेक्ट नहीं है, अभी आपने कलर का जिक्र किया, जिसका स्किन कलर परफेक्ट नहीं है, जिसके बाल परफेक्ट नहीं है, especially the girls in our community are going through teenage girls are going through the worst time of their lives even now. So many communities, so many platforms are trying to educate uh, these teenagers, these girls otherwise, लेकिन ये स्टिग्मा को ब्रेक होने में बहुत टाइम भी लगेगा. और उससे ज़्यादा we need a bigger population to accept this, that there is nothing such as perfect. लेकिन अभी तक सब वही ढूंढ रहे हैं, सब वही ढूंढ रहे हैं. So you're talking about years ago, I'm talking about years ago. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. एक और चीज I would like to share here today, and this is very personal. I've never shared it online, कभी भी इस तरह, with the community. The first question my doctor had asked me was the fact, was just one. She said, आपको क्या हुआ है? And it was just me with her in her at her clinic, and I looked at her with strange eyes because मुझे लग रहा था कि वो मुझसे पता नहीं क्या पूछ रही है. And she figured out that I was going through something emotional, and she kept asking me. She wanted me to open up about what was going on with me. And you know what I said to her? I said, I am just tired of making everybody happy.
Happy.
I
Wow.
have been through this. I know.
That this is
Which is
happening. This is
why,
happening everywhere.
yes, which is why it is important, Farah, more than ever now. जिस वक्त हम and you know what's happening now, because Abhi, you're based in the UK and we're based back here in the community. What is happening now is post COVID, this race has gotten even stronger. तो जब हम बात कर रहे हैं perfectionism की, यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है that people are looking for upskilling की भी बात हो रही है ना, तो एक दूसरे से अगर बात करेंगे या कनेक्ट करने की कोशिश करेंगे तो ज्यादातर बोलेंगे अच्छा हमने जो कोर्स किया है वो बिल्कुल परफेक्ट है, पर हमें लग रहा है कि आप जहां से स्किल बिल्डिंग का कोर्स करें ना, हमें नहीं लगता कि वो so it's just जैसे आपने माइंडसेट की बात करी, I would want you to shed some light to the fact कि कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है हमारा माइंड सेट और हमारा ये सिंक्रनी जिसकी हम बार बार बात करते हैं, मेरे जैसा आदमी आपके जैसा इंसान. When we talk about the synchrony between our mind and our hearts, what is actually what actually do you feel can be really, आपने बोला band-aid वाला example, that's the perfect example. That's what we do. We just cover it up. We hush it under the carpet. We don't want to talk about it.
No.
And
And
there have been so many suicide cases, teenage suicidal cases, Farah, in the past 6 months that is unbelievable in Pakistan. Most of these
really,
children, yes, most of these children who've committed suicide have left notes for their parents, who've pressurized them for grades, who've pressurized them to be the perfect child or the perfect student in class. So this is growing by magnanimous counts. I don't have even words to explain. What do you think, Farah, should be our step forward as women, as community leads, as being here? What is you feel should be our priority?
I'm going to share something with you, and I'm going to kind of be brave and share this. I very much relate to this suicide thing you just mentioned, and it's very upsetting. The minute you said this, it really upset me because I'm thinking I could feel the pressure those kids have gone through. So when I was growing up in Pakistan, my dad had put the similar pressure on me. He will compare us to my cousins who were more clever, my cousins who were not in a broken family necessarily, my cousins who stayed in one house, had tuition, and had a lot of pressure to also be very perfect. But comparatively, me and my brother and sisters, we weren't academically as bright as my cousins. And my dad blamed it on the marriage. He blamed it that he got married to a Brazilian, and hence we are not as academic because we haven't studied hard enough, or our style was slightly different. We were different people, but we were not accepted easily. So within a little, we were sitting, I remember very clearly in the kitchen, I was sat down with my cousins, my dad was talking to us, and he straight out said to me, and if my dad is watching, I apologize, but I think it relates to a lot of people. He said to me, look how many marks you got. Marks. You've got something like 5 out of 100. You've done so badly. You're like a disgrace. Right in front of my cousins who got 100 out of 100 or whatever. And I remember this as a child growing up. Now, can you imagine how I grew up? I always thought I wasn't good enough. I always thought I was like a second-class citizen, like I was below my cousins. I was below their academic level. Now, what level? Now I have my own business. So am I going to look back and compare myself to my cousin who's a doctor or my cousin who's a engineer? It doesn't matter what they are. It's great that they've got what they did. But I wasn't that person. I couldn't fall into that line. Or my brother or sister, um, we weren't able to follow the stream that my dad wanted us to follow. Somehow, I don't know why we didn't, you know. But he made us feel so bad, and I could easily imagine doing something bad to myself the time he said that to me, i.e., maybe cutting myself or being taking an action which may have led to that. And I also see the same behavior, unfortunately, in England with some of the Asian parents. They are putting so much pressure on their kids to get certain grades because they want that. They want their kids to have that for themselves and not for the child. No one's asking what the child wants. Nobody wants to know. If in a Pakistani family, if a child wants to be a YouTuber, that's not going to be looked upon well, is it? If your child wants to be a YouTuber, no one's going to accept that. But what if that child is really good at being a YouTuber? What if that child is great at producing content for YouTube and he might help thousands of people doing this? What is wrong with that? But because we are so culturally stuck and we don't open our minds to look for and ask, and you don't have to open your mind to every child, just ask your own child, what do you like? What do you want to do?
So
Don't
true.
make their and don't prescribe their future. Why are you prescribing their future without asking them what they want? Otherwise, the ability to think for yourself is not there. They're not thinking for themselves. Their parents are telling them it's tuition, you're going to do your medicine, you're going to become a doctor, then you're going to become a specialist. Whether you love people, whether you want to operate on people, whether you love humans, but you're going to go through this path because that's what I want for you. Because if you don't do that, what's the word in Pakistani? They said my status will go down, or my izzat
मेरी
will go
इज्जत
down.
कम हो जाएगी लोग क्या
Yeah.
कहेंगे
लेकिन उनका बेटा डॉक्टर नहीं बनना चाह रहा है, उसको शौक है वेट बनने का, लेकिन इनकी इज्जत के मामले से he has to go through and do that, which is such a shame because you're going to have a very upset life, aren't you?
Exactly. तो मुझे बताइए फारा, for parents who are listening in right now, बहुत ज़्यादा change भी है. There's been a huge change wave in Pakistan as well for the past few years, where and you must have been seeing that on the internet because now socially there are a lot of parents who are a lot of women, a lot of men who are working in the field, projecting different perspectives. But then that's a certain small percentage. It's not the masses. It's not where it's not where we would know this as a communal perspective. So the reason I brought this up right now is the fact that this has to be a communal perspective. It cannot be just for the elite. It cannot be, Farah, just for the educated or just for people who are made to sit and made to be, listening to the fact कि हाँ जी आपको समझ में आ रहा है because आप first world समझते हैं कि क्या है. It has to be, everyone has to be in the same cycle. What do you think about that? I mean, there has to be no disparity.
This exactly what we are doing is actually working towards this circle that you're talking about. So we need to widen the circle, we need to widen the appreciation for what's going on and spread the word, because I think people, if there are parents listening to this, they will relate to this. Who wants their child to be unhappy and upset? No one. They don't want their children to be upset, but they need to stop, observe for a minute, and they need to stop the rat race that my son needs to do this because so and so's son's doing this. That needs to stop, because your son is not the same person as your friend's child. So why are you comparing? The comparing needs to stop. And that comes from the parent themselves, and they need to question why are they so anxious about their child getting a certain degree and the child getting into certain pathway versus doing something that they will think about it themselves. This way you're not developing child's mindfully. And depression and anxiety comes from having an unhappy life because your parents pushed you to become a certain person.
True. And
they've left their parent and they've become a doctor, whatever they've become that they didn't want to, they're married, but they don't know who they are. They're simply counting the reps. They're living their life like an autopilot without knowing what happiness means, what unhappiness means. And also, they're going to bring their child exactly the same way because they don't know any different. So now we're not breaking the chain. So the chain continues. What we need to do is somebody needs to break the chain.
Yes, which is I feel, Farah, I really felt connected to you the first time when we were speaking, and I said so to you as well, that when we talk about self-actualization, अपने आप को पहले समझना, जहाँ हम बात करते हैं सेल्फ स्वॉट की, जब हम अपने स्ट्रेंथ्स देखते हैं, हम अपने वीकनेसेस देखते हैं, हम अपने थ्रेट्स को खुद देखते हैं एज अ पर्सनल इंडिविजुअल. सो मतलब of all these children across the country that I'm counseling one way or the other, either online or physically, one to one, face to face, everywhere, believe me, whether that person is a child, 13 years of age, 10 years of age, or that person is a corporate professional, जो कि 45-46 से भी ऊपर है, the self-actualization part of our mentoring program sometimes takes more than 4 weeks to seep in. Can you believe it?
100%. And what an amazing thing you're doing. I mean, I know you gave me an example of this guy who attended your course, and he said for the first time ever, he felt like he's been heard and that he can speak his mind. In 50, he's a 50 years or 40 years old guy, wasn't he? Well, I remember that.
55.
I remember our conversation. 55. I mean, look at that. I mean, he's never had the opportunity to express himself. And he would have just died without doing that. And that's such a shame, because God has given us our brain to use.
That is such a shame.
Not to look at a textbook, not to look at a textbook and learn it by heart, like parrot fashion. You know, I grew up like that. Ratta, you know ratta?
Yes.
Ratta lagana. Pata hai na aapko ratta lagana?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
still, it's still a staple here. Acha, Isha Afridi, I would like to mention her comment here. If we could do that quickly. हम Isha का comment ले लेते हैं. She's asking you a question, Farah. She's saying, my question is for younger people like herself. Depression has become a running term for all big and small problems a teenager faces. It is losing its real meaning due to the meme and troll culture. How do we take action of this situation? How do we make younger people understand the importance of mental health? Isha, as I mentioned earlier, Farah is the founder of the youth circle, the youth community founder circle here in Pakistan, the Lean-In community, mashallah. And Isha, we'll be happy to address that with Farah, inshallah. Yes, Farah, what would you want to share with Isha?
I think having a community in where young people can express themselves freely, without being picked on, without being told off about how they feel, is the first step, I think. The first step in them actually saying something, and their views need to be respected, not poo-pooed. Don't say that. Listen to the young person. Whatever their view is your opinion. That view isn't right. Their view is right because it's their perspective about whatever they're saying. And unless you get that in your head, that they need to be respected, every single teenager needs to be respected, and they need a community where they can speak freely. And they need to meet up a weekly basis or monthly basis, or have an online community where they can air their views. Because that's what I would have said in Pakistan. I never had the opportunity to do that. I was not allowed to say what I wanted, because the minute I opened my mouth and said something wrong, my whole family got against me. And my dad, was embarrassed of me. And my uncle was embarrassed of me.
True,
so I would very much say that it's
exactly everybody. So what I would also like to mention here, bolo Farah.
And encourage that behavior as well.
Please continue, Farah.
So other people can actually come into this community and feel comfortable in expressing themselves. I mean, if there's a community like that in Pakistan where you can express yourself freely without getting shot, then that would be lovely. That would be amazing. Really, really, that would be amazing for kids to thrive in.
Wow. Acha, and Farah, I think you'd be happy to know I had shared the Mindful Skills Development Club with you. That's exactly what the Skills Club, which is global, Alhamdulillah, we've based here in Pakistan. We formed it. Isha, I would like to share that with you as well. Basically, the idea behind this mindful youth club, wherein the age is as minimum as 13 and as maximum as 45. The reason behind this is the fact that we want to create a platform where there is that, you know, that thing that we know in the UK and the US, the 911 to dial,
I see. Okay.
Farah, the 911 when we dial 911 for help. So,
That's
so
where
you
you
know,
get to.
basically the idea is that we bring together to the consortium. Yeah. So basically, we're making a consortium. We're creating a consortium of people, which is going to be global. Why? Because we want to bridge the gap where we're talking about globalized citizens. When we're talking about perspectives, we want people from other parts of the world to share with our people. और इसको भी, by the way, and I'm sure Farah, I think you would agree and Isha would agree कि हमारे यहाँ जो है वो एक बड़ा सा ना एक बबल है Farah, कि सिर्फ जो एलीट लोग हैं, जो एजुकेटेड हैं, जो जिनका नेटवर्क बहुत अच्छा है, सिर्फ वो लोग एक्सेस कर सकते हैं और बाकी के लोगों को बेचारों को ढूंढना पड़ेगा सिर्फ छोटे छोटे क्लिप्स के फॉर्म में. So this was something that we wanted to work against, and which is why what we're doing is that we're creating this platform where our people, nation, nationally and internationally, get to sit together with people. This club is going to help upscale mindfully with experts from around the globe. And what more so is going to happen is this is going to be a space where everybody's going to be speaking. We're going to be talking about parents and mentoring parents, which is very important. Gen Z's को हैंडल करना, मिलेनियल्स को हैंडल करना बहुत जरूरी है. टैकल करना कैसे है, सीखना जरूरी है. So, you know, that this is just one bit of what we're trying to do. But as Isha asked you, Farah, when we say, आपको पता है, there's one other thing that happens. When a child from our community and from our families says कि मुझे depression हो रहा है, it's considered a hoax because it's considered कि एक बच्चा depressed नहीं हो सकता. What do you have to say about that?
There's an element of, not element of truth, but how do you define depression as a child? Where do you think this child is getting this word from as well? उनके घर में ये बात हो रही है depression की? Is he seeing what does he know? How does he know what depression is? Is he hanging around with the community or hanging around with other kids or older kids that may be talking about this? So there is if he's feeling depressed, meaning he's feeling sadness somewhere. There is some disconnection between him feeling good about himself and not feeling good about himself. And maybe he's using the word depression like, is it Isha? Isha said that people
Isha,
are using this, and now we're not sure whether it's hoax or whether it's real. But I would say every child who says I'm feeling like this needs to be heard. Okay. And if you're listening, if you know your child, you would know yourself. And if you don't, as a parent, you need to get educated. A parent needs some kind of, it's up to the parents to get some education around what are the signs of depression. Google it. Google the thing and observe your child. Observe. Don't speak. Just watch. What's he doing? Is he eating? Is he sleeping? Who's he hanging out with? Is he on his phone a lot? Who is he speaking to on his phone? Look at this, gather some evidence and base your decision on that. And if you think that I know my child, I'm a bit worried because his behavior is showing signs of depression, symptoms of anxiety, then take action, as in go and see a doctor. So you have to know your child. And this will come from you watching your child carefully for a few days and finding out what's going on and maybe making some notes. Write it down. Write down what is your observation. Take your notes to the doctor and be very clear on what you have observed. But don't say to your child, you are
what do you think?
You don't.
But what do you really think, Farah? I'm sorry I'm cutting you out, but what do you think is actually would the doctor's acceptance rate be here as a psychologist in Pakistan to this idea? Do you think really that they're going to take this really seriously? Do you think they really take this seriously? ADHD, I would like to mention here, Farah, ADHD is the most favorite symptom and prescription that is given in Pakistan within the popular most schools to children by the counselors. The first thing the parent is told if the child is not really performing well is आपके बच्चे को ADHD है. When
Wow.
I meet such parents and the mothers are frantic and they believe it's an ailment that can never be treated, या पता नहीं ये कौन सी बीमारी उनके बच्चे को हो गई है और वो बच्चा जो है वो उस डिप्रेशन में चला जाता है कि उसको ऐसी पता नहीं कौन सी बीमारी है जो कभी हल नहीं हो सकती, वो पढ़ नहीं सकता, वो लिख नहीं सकता, वो कभी परफॉर्म नहीं कर सकता. Conversations like these, Farah, even you would agree, tear off a complete person. It gives you that alibi for the rest of your life that you have something wrong here.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I really I relate to that. My brother hated school. You know, usko school bilkul pasand nahi tha. And
है ना?
he used to get told off by my dad. You know, my dad will like tell him off, smack him, send him to school. And you know what? He'll run away from the school. He didn't want to be
My
there.
God.
So because he didn't want to go to school, nobody sat down with him and find out what is your, you know, why don't you like school? There might be reasons. The problem is about communication. It's shocking, the communication. I don't remember my dad finding out.
Communication.
Communication is so poor. You don't even know your child. So how can you diagnose anything? You don't know what your child
आप लोग
is
अपनी
was
आवाज
going
कम कर
through.
लें, आप चप्पलें आएंगी आप लोगों के मुंह पे.
Sorry, Zora, what did you say?
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I
Yeah.
can hear you. So I carry on.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
So he used to bunk school. He used to run away. He used to hate it. He used to play cricket. He loved cricket. My brother just loved cricket. So every now and
Wow.
then we'll see him playing cricket rather than being in school. So can you imagine my father absolutely not liking this? He wanted his son to become a doctor, an engineer, like his nephews, like his nieces. But my brother didn't do that. But my brother, right today, he's an award-winning mortgage broker. Right?
Super.
So he's
Wow.
not a failure. He's not a failure. He just needed to find his way. He needed to find what works for him. But you know, he had to go through a long journey because he was fortunate to come here. And here he found his way without the pressure. He failed, he got up again. He failed, he got up again. And finally he achieved.
Wow.
And none of us have achieved. He does amazing. Like everybody wants him. You know, he's got awards after awards on his wall. But my dad couldn't, you know, he didn't give him the opportunity, just didn't give him a chance. Because we got and it's not my dad's fault, because my dad's dad, my granddad, my dada,
yes,
he did this into my dad. So he wanted my dad to be highly educated. And he got smacked and beaten up so that he can go to school. So can you see, this has to break, you have to break the chain. So my brother has broken the chain. He won't treat his son like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, so it does.
He will give him opportunity to understand him and maybe change. But this is one scenario. And this scenario is that we are in England. What's happening with people in Pakistan? They need to observe their children and they need to become close to their children emotionally. Don't always look at academically. Just because your child isn't clever in class does not mean they're not clever everywhere else. It doesn't mean you don't write them off. Don't write them off, because you're going to give them complex, which will stay with them and convert into mental health issues later. What do you want to do?
Yes. So true. So true. Farah. And okay, Isha has something else to say. I'm just going to share this. Okay, she says, this is exactly what she's trying to do through her community, bringing ordinary people like herself and scouting people who are willing to talk candidly. But she says that it's the most difficult task. Farah, what do you have to say? It is difficult. It's not easy, Isha.
Even though I'm talking on this channel, and this is my first opportunity to talk to people in Pakistan, I've never been connected before as such in this way. I always go live every day, and there's all kinds of people on my live, on my fan page. But what Isha's just said is very, very true, because you have to be brave. You have to stand out. You have to believe in yourself to be able to say these things that I'm saying. You know, I have referenced my father, I have referenced my mother, I have referenced my brother.
Yes.
Why? Because if I tell you the truth, if I open up my story, then you're going to relate to me. If I make out
Yes.
everything's perfect, what is the point of me being here? You know, I have to tell you what difficulties I have come through to understand. So I understand what my cousins, I also saw my cousins struggling because they weren't as good in academically, and they were struggling and they weren't able to speak. If they spoke, they got slapped. You know, if they spoke, they got smacked. And so their voices are shut. So the voice, which is a freedom, which is a speech, you know, we are all allowed to be ourselves in some boundaries. When you're bringing children up, you have boundaries. But I think you're right. For the elite people, even for the elite people, I've seen it in this country. Some of the Asian people, they're very well off. They're still struggling. They're still struggling. The biggest issue is a lack of education. Is they don't want to open their mind. They don't want to accept there's something wrong. And if there is something wrong, they don't believe it's going to get fixed. They think if my child is not, you know, conforming, that's it. My life is finished.
Over.
You know, so dramatic. Stop with that.
Uh-huh.
Stop and look at your child and see what's going on, and love your child for who he is or who she is, not because of what grades they're bringing home. That is completely
I
the wrong
I
way
would
of bringing children up.
Bilkul. And I would want to mention here, Farah, the O-level grades have just come out a few days back. I'm sure you'd be aware of that as well. GCSE
Yes.
just sent out the results, and there have been a few students, a lot of students who've not achieved the grades that they had to achieve. I would like to use this opportunity today. I speak to a lot, many across the nation, but there's so many that I don't get a chance to speak to. और क्योंकि हम दोनों इस वक्त बात कर रहे हैं, I would want to share with everybody who's not achieved the grade, it's not the end of the world. As Farah said, zindagi khatam nahi hoti beta. There is so much to do, you know.
Let
और
me tell
अभी बोले Farah?
let me tell you, my brother didn't have any particular grades. He didn't go to university. Okay, he's an award-winning mortgage broker. He earns more money than all of the people that have a degree. Let me tell you that. Me, I didn't have a degree. I have a bachelor's of art from Pakistan. I have my own business. I can spend time with my kids. I'm flexible and I love what I do. So I love helping women. So look at me. I don't have
Wow.
those grades. I didn't get good grades at all. Um, my sister, younger one, she went to university, but she kind of, you know, she works. Sometimes she works for retail. Sometimes she can take it or leave it. You know, we are not defined by our grades. We don't need the perfect grades. Look at what your next options are. Now, whatever grades you have, be thankful and look for what your next option is, and really look for what you love doing, because you're going to do this for the
Yes.
rest of your life. So you want to do something that you love, not do something that you have to do because your parents told you. So here's your opportunity to really look deeper, Google things, search, do your own research, and then go to your parents and say, look, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to do this. And I'm sure if you come up with a solution yourself, they will probably support you with that. My niece just recently,
I'm
she's
sure.
here in England. She's had
Acha.
this is a very good story. Here's a story of a young teenager who is stuck between British culture and Pakistani culture. Okay, her parents are Pakistani, but she grew up with my nan, who's Brazilian. She did her A levels. That she's a wonderful ballet dancer. Now, this will never be approved in Pakistan, by the way. You know, this will not be looked upon good, but she's a beautiful ballet dancer up until the age of 14, 15. She did very well in her GCSEs. When she went to A levels, she decided that she should do something that her dad would be proud of, like medicine. So she dramatically changed all her future plans from being a ballet dancer, maybe being in performing arts, maybe being a drama student. She changed to biomedicine. For 2 years, this girl has worked so hard to achieve the biology, chemistry, and maths, I believe, psychology.
Wow.
And she
Psychology.
works so hard. And because of our COVID situation, obviously she wasn't able to give her exams. So in England, nobody gave their exams for A levels. And her grades, you know, they weren't as good as she wanted them to be. But when she realized that actually I didn't really want to do biomedicine, I didn't want to do that. I did it because I thought I must do something where my family is going to be happy with me, but she's got no interest in becoming a doctor. And this is happening here in my own family. So we've been talking to her a lot recently. And yesterday, in fact, I was with her last night. And she said she's so thankful that she can see that I mustn't follow that path because that wasn't for me. It was for other people. Now I'm going to do what I love because I need to do it for the rest of my life. But she's fortunate because we have been helping her. We've been supporting her. We've been having conversations with her. This is why conversation is really important. So find that one person in your life. It might not be your mom and dad. It could be your granddad. It could be your auntie. It could be your auntie. It could be a cousin. Could be someone who's older than you. Find that person and get them to with you.
Speak out, huh? This is also something that is an agenda, भैया. Speaking out means पहले से traumatized होते हैं सबके सब. सोचे individuals like me or you, even जब हम इधर आ जाते हैं, imagine yourself here in Multan those years back, speaking in between your family elders. कैसा pressure होता है ना? नहीं बोल सकते. So it's the same.
I mean, you can't
even now it's
wrong.
नहीं बोल सकते.
Yeah. If you sit wrong, you get told off. If your dupatta isn't correctly, you get told off. If you speak wrong, you get told off. If you eat badly with your mouth open, you get told off. If your legs you're sitting like a proper lady, you get told off. So it's hard, really, really hard.
It is very hard, and I always say that when we're saying when people like Farah and myself are saying that we want even me as a parent, Farah, I've changed a lot since after I started studying mind sciences. I was a different mother before I ever really started concentrating on all of these essentials. I'll be very honest, and it took me time to become a person. I'm not saying I'm a super mom, but yes, I have changed. I see myself being a different mom right now when I can consider so many things. So I see it's only, but it was my journey started when I realized I was not being the right kind of mother. I realized myself, I realized myself that I was putting my child down because I was using my anxiety and my stress zone to put her off, and that was when my journey started. Wow. And when I started looking up for things that would help me become a better, more sane person here. I'll be very honest.
That's a really fantastic insight that you've just shared with us. If you can actually, and this is exactly what we need to do with other mothers and fathers to awaken this insight, that epiphany that you had, that thought, that little light bulb moment. Is it me? Am I putting my anxiety onto my child because maybe I didn't make a doctor, or maybe I didn't become this particular person? I now want to live my life through my child. The most unfair thing to do. Because a doctor equals a successful life, by the way, not anymore. There's thousands of GPs in the UK, okay? That doesn't equal a successful life. In fact, let me share this with you. I've got some of my clients. Some of my clients are actually doctors. They're unhealthy. They are very unhealthy.
Oh my God.
And they said to me,
that's easy.
Wow. हम कैसे कहें इन लोगों को कि ये तुम वेट कम करो, बल्कि हमारा वेट इतना ज्यादा वो हुआ है, हम कैसे कहें इन लोगों को? हमें शर्म आती है कि अपना वेट डाउन करो. This situation. But look, why have you put weight on? Because you are unhappy in your job.
Okay, Farah, I would want to take this opportunity now before we move towards ending the show. The fact that we would like the opportunity to request you for a collaborative with you and your pioneering initiative so that we can bring a collaborative program to Pakistan, so that we could use and project this community with the same kind of tools that you're trying to use to help people back there. And as you rightfully said, and I think that's why we connected. Thankfully, we're people who want to give back, and I'm sure there's so many more like Isha. She's a very young girl, and there's so many more जिन्होंने आज हमें join किया. ये सब community leads हैं, सब women हैं, और सब कोशिश कर रही हैं अपने अपने ends पे. पर मेरी request होगी आपसे, if you feel there is any possibility that we can bring a collaborative program to Pakistan, where we can bring your expertise to Pakistan and probably design a program that would be easily accessible by a common mother and an everyday father in all its discreetness, because वो भी एक बहुत बड़ा agenda है, आपको पता है. Normal training की जब बात होती है, there's a lot of issues where there are people who don't want us speaking about the fact that they're going through a program or going through a session. So ये बहुत सारे mixed issues होते हैं. So yeah, so हम जरूर request करना चाहेंगे. I would want to use this opportunity to request you if you could become a part of our mindful skills development perspective with your program, with your entity, with your beautiful group and your things that you're doing. I think that would be a wonderful thing to bring down to Pakistan. एक और एक comment आया, if you would permit, Farah, मैं ले लूं. Thank you so much for joining us. और सब ये सारे हमारे regulars हैं. वैसे आज मैंने बहुत सारे comments खाए हैं. I'm really sorry because मैं इतना गुम हो गई फारा के साथ बातों में, मैंने बहुत सारे comments पढ़े नहीं हैं. So but जब आप लोग सब recordings देखेंगे तो सबके comments आए हुए होंगे. Any saying, she thinks mothers generally are more concerned about upgrading their parental skills. Fathers are not. ऐसा है?
I didn't catch that. एक दफा बात में दोबारा
बोली. एनी बोल रही है कि she thinks कि जो माएं होती हैं उनको ज्यादा अपने पेरेंटल स्किल्स के ऊपर काम करने का शौक होता है, फादर्स को नहीं होता. ये क्या है वैसे? क्यों फादर्स को लगता है उनको जरूरत नहीं है?
Because हमने सब फादर्स को बाहर भेज दिया है, काम करो जाकर. Mostly most of the mothers अब तो you see women का जो काम है डबल हो गया है, because women अब बाहर भी काम करती हैं और अपने घर के अंदर भी काम करती हैं.
हाँ बिल्कुल.
So and the fathers only stay outside. They only know that one thing. ठीक है ना? So what happens is, this is why you have to look after yourself, woman. All the women who are listening to Mentoring Hub, every single day you need to look after yourself. There's no one who's going to look after you. No mother-in-law, not mum really, because she's busy doing her own thing. You need to drink water. You need to eat good food. You need to sleep. You need to have time for you, mindful sessions, like enroll yourself in programs, enroll yourself and get yourself more educated, because you are the one who's going to lead your ship. You are the driver. You've got the hands on the steering wheel. The husbands, most of them are bringing in the money or they're working outside. They don't have the natural instincts to think about how you think. We can't. This is biological. This is biological.
Biological.
This is why there's always fights. When you ask your husband to put the bin out, they don't like to be told. You ask your husband to put the bin out. उनको पसंद नहीं है. ये क्यों कह रही है मुझको? But do you want to do anything? कोई काम तो करो ना.
Farah, the typical most here in Pakistani community, यहाँ based here, I think I can without a doubt say on the behalf of the other women who are watching us, क्या ये वक्त है अभी ही बात करनी है? Now is it so important? You want to speak now? Can we do it later? तो ये जो do it later वाला जो होता है ना, it just tips the women off, and we are then on this anxiety plethora and we're just waving everywhere in the house, and but you're right कि ये माँ की tendency और character है, बाप की हो नहीं सकती, because उसको अल्लाह मियाँ ने बनाया नहीं है वैसा. Only mothers are made the way any कि जिसके अंदर हम लोग बार बार अपनी ही आप को critically देखते रहते हैं कि हमें और क्या करना है. This is something we are wired for.
आपको पता है ना, the best leaders जो हैं वो women हैं.
Yes, so true.
दुनिया की सबसे best leaders women हैं.
बिल्कुल है.
Because when
और एनी ने एक और बड़ी typical एक स्टीरियोटिपिकल चीज एनी ने शेयर की. एनी आज आप बड़ी जरा ढूंढ ढूंढ के ना अपनी दिल की बातें निकाल रही हैं. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर बीइंग ब्रेव टू शेयर your heart out through our platform. She's saying, and still the men are the ones who blame the mother if the child is not performing according to society's expectations. Yes.
Wow, that is, she is very, very true there. Very, very true. But you know, this is also about, there's another topic for another day. The communication between mum and dad. क्या relationship आपका कैसा है? It all depends on that. अगर आपका relationship सिर्फ आपका मैं खाना बनाऊंगी और मैं घर के अंदर रहूंगी और आप बाहर जाके काम करो, what is your relationship? That you two have a very good communication between you, where you respect him and he respects you. Then you can conquer the world. Like in many Pakistani couples, I don't see that, but there's opportunity here. So the new mums, okay, the new generation, please develop a relationship between you and your partner first. Once you are solid, your children will grow up better emotionally. And that is my final thing to say, because
and the ones who are midway, Farah, let's cover them too. The ones who are halfway, like me and you, we can't really do anything about it. We can start now. Start now.
Start now. You have to water the plant. आप plant लेते हैं एक अपने घर में. आप अगर उसको पानी नहीं देंगे, उसको खाना नहीं देंगे plant को, तो वो plant मर जाएगा. So आपका relationship कैसा है? अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं, how is your relationship right now? अगर नहीं है relationship, then develop it. You know, you're still alive. You have hands, you have feet. Speak up and say to your husband, this is how I feel. But bring your tone down. Don't shout. Speak nicely. Speak nicely and develop a relationship with your husband. Because we need that.
This
we
is
need that for your kids.
This is वाकई another topic for another day, Farah. Any आपने बड़े realistic chords touch किए हैं. But thank you for all and everyone who has messaged today to Farah. And you know, because this takes a brave heart. बहुत ये कोई छोटी चीज नहीं होती है जब हम अपने, but this is the silver lining when we are taking the opportunity, using the platform we are given to speak to each other. This means this is the silver lining. यही वो start है जो फरा बोल रही है, यही वो beginning है जो हम लोग बार बार कह रहे हैं देख लें. So इसका मतलब है that post COVID हम परफेक्शनिज्म की रेस में भागना बंद कर दें. फरा ने जैसे हमें इतने प्यारे तरीके से बोला कि इसका परसेप्शन बदल दो, परफेक्शन के बजाय प्रोग्रेशन देखो कहाँ बढ़ के जा रहे हैं, बढ़ भी रहे हैं या पीछे जा रहे हैं. वॉकिंग स्लो इज गुड बट वॉकिंग बैकवर्ड्स permitted in life, isn't
it? Beautifully said.
स्लो जाएं, बैकवर्ड्स ना जाएं. तो इतनी प्यारी बात फरा आपने की, and I'm really so thankful to you. You have no idea, क्योंकि इतना आप you've given me the courage, more courage to keep standing with what Mentoring Hub is revolving around. I will just share this one bit with you, Farah. जब हमने शुरू किया था Mentoring Hub का विजन, और जब मैं EQ और EI की बात करती थी with skills, अभी भी जब मैं करती हूँ with professionals, बहुत दफा मुझे question marks आते हैं मेरे इनबॉक्स में पूछ के कि आप EQ और EI क्यों कवर करना चाहती हैं. जब मैं उनको बोलती हूँ कि मैं कोई भी skills नहीं सिखाऊंगी before covering EQ and EI with the group, there are always questions कि क्यों लगता है आपको जरूरी है. But I would just want to take the opportunity to say this is why it is essential. जब हम यहाँ से sorted नहीं हैं, हम कोई चीज सीख नहीं सकते, हम कहीं बढ़ ही नहीं सकते. और फरा, इन सारी बातों में we didn't get a chance to talk about your deep healing processes, ना ही हम आपकी entity के बारे में बात कर सके. तो मैं आपसे request करना चाहूंगी कि हम एक progressive program आपके साथ इंशाल्लाह in another format design करके लेकर आए for our people to interact with you who are based here in Pakistan, ताकि हम आपके इस बहुत प्यारे initiative को अच्छी तरह से यहाँ पे लोगों तक पहुँचा सकें without disparity to as many as we can communally, inshallah. Is there anything that Farah has in her mind that you would want to say to us, the Pakistani community here, यहाँ पे, जो कभी फरा ने बोला नहीं इससे पहले? वैसे तो मुझे लग रहा है आज जो हमने बातें करी है, मैंने भी बहुत सारी आज बातें ऐसी करी जो मैंने पहले कभी नहीं की ऑनलाइन या कभी अपनी कम्युनिटी के साथ, बट वैसे भी फरा, ऐसी दिल की कौन सी चीज है जो तुमको लगता है कि वाकई यार अगर अब नहीं करेंगे तो कब करेंगे? When?
This is for the women. मैंने अपनी आंटीज और खाला और फुप्पो सबको बहुत सेक्रीफाइस करते हुए देखा है, बहुत सेक्रीफाइस, और वो हमेशा सेक्रीफाइस करती थी, पर लेकिन वो बताती थी कि वो सेक्रीफाइस कर रही हैं, लेकिन उनकी अपनी खुशी बहुत कम थी, और इस वजह से उनकी लाइफ very very poor quality and sad and not well. Kidney stones, problems in the liver, problems with this, problems with that, cancer, you know, lots and lots of stressful related problems. And if you're women listening to this, you know, I work with women, so my message is really for women. If you're women listening to this, please ask for help. You are not a superwoman. You're not meant to do everything by yourself. If you are a unit, your husband and wife, you do things together. You figure out what's for you, you figure out what's for him, you work together. If you're sacrificing all the time, you're not gonna be around. You're gonna be an unhappy woman, probably get ill very early on. You might not be around in the world to look at your kids' happiness. Okay, this is the thing that I saw growing up, and I saw the men being shut out. They didn't even talk. They were just going to work, and I saw the women talking a lot, but they weren't doing any. They weren't asking for help. They weren't open, and they were hiding a lot of things. You know, you need to open and speak to people, and this is why your kids are going to be the same, and they will hide the pain. That leads to mental health. That leads to suicide. That leads to people cutting themselves. So please open up, speak up. Someone you feel comfortable with. You have to have one person that you feel comfortable with. Speak. That's my message.
So true, Farah. So true. Thank you so much, Farah. मैं आपको बार बार शुक्रिया कह रही हूँ, but I really mean it from the bottom of my heart, because this has been a different journey altogether today. This conversation with you, it took me back to really why I evolved and how I evolved, and which is why I shared, and I always share. और फरा की बातों से भी आप लोगों को लगा होगा कि हम जैसे लोग अपनी failures सिर्फ इसलिए down times, low times, failures, puddles इसलिए शेयर करते हैं कि हम नहीं चाहते कि हमारे साथ वाला भी उसी कीचड़ में पैर डाले जिसमें हमारा चला गया था, बिकॉज हमें पता नहीं था. तो ये in all honesty, in all genuineness, there is nothing but the fact कि ये जरूरी है हमारा इस वक्त कि हम अपनी रेस जो है ना, वो जरा रेस का डायरेक्शन ठीक कर लें. We still have time. The new normal, हर आदमी बात कर रहा है new normal के लिए नए ट्रेड्स के साथ तैयार होंगे तो ज्यादा बेहतर तैयार होंगे. तो अभी टाइम है, जल्दी जल्दी अपने जो डायरेक्टिव्स है ना वो जरा बदल लें और जाविये बदल लें. और जैसे फरा ने बड़े प्यारे तरीके से, और फरा आपकी बातें सुन के हमें इसलिए भी स्ट्रेंज नहीं लगा, because of your affinity of being here, studying from here, means very truly आपकी बातों से पता चला that you know you're somebody who can really relate to all of what a normal person goes through from here. I know, so इसलिए मुझे पता है कि और भी जितने लोग सुन रहे हैं और अब रिकॉर्डिंग सुनेंगे, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of more feedbacks coming in. We'd like to take your lead, Farah. Thank you so much for all your time, but you have to promise us to come back in another format with Mentoring Hub, and we are yet to speak about your venture in detail, the deep healing process, which is a magical one that she's come up with, mashallah, that she's using all around the globe to make everybody so healthy, not just physically but mentally as well. So वो हम अपने इंशाल्लाह next progressive program में cover करेंगे. आज के लिए इतना ही. Thank you, Farah. आप अपना Sunday enjoy करें with your family, and we'll inshallah come back with. Thank you so much. Thank you, Farah. Thank you, my dear. Khuda Hafiz. Thank you so much, community. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Your comments.
Bye.